Happy Monday, everybody. My name is Sarah Howard, and I'm the Youth and Community Services Manager for the Danube Regional Library. Welcome to our Zoom room. A reminder to put questions in the chat, and Heather will be happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. And the questions, just as a reminder, will only be seen by the presenter and the runner of Zoom. A huge thanks for Children's Grove for sponsoring this event. And it will be recorded. So if you know someone that couldn't be here today, the link should be up in about a week and we'll have it out and about. But today we're here to learn about how to fill your child's emotional tank and some strategies to help children feel loved and how to be directly connected to what they're feeling and simple ways that you can use starting immediately. Heather currently works at the Columbia Boone County Department of Public Health and Human Services as a health program coordinator, and our focus is on overdose response and adult mental health. So please give a warm welcome to Heather Harlan.
Thanks so much, Sarah. And thanks again to the library and to the Children's Grove for this opportunity today. This is actually one of my favorite topics, and I don't get to present on it too often. So these are concepts I hope that you will find very useful today. So just welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your busy days to be here with me. So as we go into the presentation today, our focus is really going to be more on prevention and less on intervention. I am really, and what do I mean by that? I'm a certified prevention specialist. One of my passions in life and in my work is to work to prevent substance use disorders, or what we used to call addictions. So I like to focus a lot on how we really can prevent things from happening. So I spent a lot of years in prevention, and we knew that in preventing substance use disorders and problems with drugs and alcohol for young people, a lot could be prevented by strong attachment to parents and adult caregivers in their lives. So a lot of programs focus on discipline or what to do in case a child may present with difficult behavior. But today, I'm going to invite you to look at prevention and less on intervention, and to look at how are some different ways that we might think about preventing difficult behavior that we have to deal with our children. So a lot of the ideas that I'm going to offer today are from a book, several books actually, by Dr. Ross Campbell. These books have been around for a while. He's a pediatrician, but he wrote a couple of books, How to Really Love Your Child and How to Really Love Your Teen. These were helpful for me to understand different approaches to how we might take in interacting with our children. And again, I'm pretty passionate about communication and what we say, but sometimes that gets complicated. It feels like learning a new language. So what I'm going to offer today is a little bit different approach. And I just wanted to acknowledge a lot of these concepts are ones that I learned from Dr. Campbell's books, and then I'm going to add to some of them today. So you might be feeling a little as though you're kind of maybe constantly wrestling with your child's behavior, especially during the holidays. This is December of 2024. And maybe you're feeling kind of defeated. I know parenting is such an exhausting demand on our lives and our hearts, and being adult caregivers. So sometimes it feels as though you just get over one hurdle and there's another, especially when there's put in the mix the holidays, expectations, financial challenges of this season, weather, school out, childcare, all those sorts of things. So especially when you need your children to act better and it feels like they're acting worse. So I want to take a few minutes today. Then, if you're feeling defeated, then we want to acknowledging that parenting and caring for a child is a challenging feat, F-E-A-T. So today I'm going to be sharing ideas for parents and adults and caregivers so that how you can accomplish a great feat, F-E-A-T, feat. So, and the feat will be helping your child feel loved. How do we do that? That's a great feat. A feat is a noteworthy or extraordinary act or accomplishment, usually displaying accomplishment and skill. So we're going to give you some pretty accessible skills today. My objective today really is to give you 3 strategies to help prevent or possibly reduce your child or your teen's difficult behavior. because these may be strategies that can help your child feel more connected to you. So these when can you begin? So how long till you begin? Well, these can be simple, concrete behaviors you can start before the sun sets today. You can begin right away. This is one of the things I love about these ideas that we'll present. Now, it used to be, I wondered for a long time when people would say that children act out. And I thought, I'm not, what does that mean to act out? And it wasn't that long ago that I really came to understand that when we say feelings and emotions, the reason we call emotions feelings is because we feel them in our body first. So we feel anxiety in our body first. We may feel joy in our body first. We may feel fear in our body first. And then we begin to run that through the thinking or rational part of our brain. But if a child has just a feeling in their body, they don't have anything to do with it because they may not have the linguistic capability, the verbal ability to process or share that. So they act it out. So they act out that behavior or a behavior. So today we're going to again look at different ways we can begin to help children with that. So these are going to be the concepts you can use to accomplish this FEAT, F-E-A-T. The F is going to stand for fill their emotional tanks through eye contact, attention, or what I would call focused attention, and touch. Feet fill their emotional tanks through eye contact, attention, or focused attention specifically, and touch. So again, a feat is a noteworthy or extraordinary act or achievement, usually displaying accomplishment and skill. And for you to be able to utilize these will help you feel more skilled in your parenting. So, how children in our lives, how do they know that we love them? We tell them, I love you. You know I love you. We may tell them that we love them, and we say we show them. Well, let's break that down a little bit more. How do we show children we love them? Well, why is that even important? Children who feel loved usually behave better, learn better, and develop more resilience or an ability to bounce back from difficult events. And we know children are going to encounter difficult events. So we want to be able to help them. We can't shield them from everything. They're going to encounter difficulties as children and as adults. But when they begin life with a strong connection with caregivers, an emotional connection with caregivers, they will be able to bounce back more because they have that attachment. Children, if we pause for a moment to remember that children are utterly dependent on parents or adult caregivers. They know that intrinsically. They know that. So they don't have a lot of options to deal with difficulties in their lives. So we want to be able to help them and give them the skills. And the closer they feel to us, the more willing they are to be able to model and learn those skills that might get them through life. How can we show children we love them? Well, children keep asking one question. This really simplifies things a lot when we examine why are they doing that? They're asking one question. And what's so when we want to show children we love them, do you know the question they keep asking? The question, the one question is this: do you love me? Remember, we just said children are totally dependent on us for their care and their very survival. So, knowing that they have a strong attachment with the people who are the adults who are going to care for them is extremely important for them to be able to concentrate on other learning tasks. If they're continued to be worried about whether or not they're connected to these adults who are supposed to care for them, it makes learning other skills very difficult. Now, do children ask us this question? Do you love me? Good morning. Mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, do you love me? Nope. They don't ask it using words. So how do they ask it? They ask us through their behavior. That's how they ask this question, this all important question. Do you love me? They ask it through their behavior because they're sort of acting out that anxiety perhaps that they're feeling like, I wonder if I'm connected. So they act it out and they ask through the behavior. Now, how do we answer them? Well, I don't know. How do we answer that one all important constant question our children ask? How do we ask it? Answer it. We answer it through our behavior as adults. They ask the question through their behavior, do you love me? And we answer it through our behavior. So let's sort of, this is sort of we can't really measure it very well, but sort of looking at the ways we approach life. So just as an exercise, so here's sort of a scale. Emotion on the left is somebody is measuring maybe that feeling a lot of emotion, or that's how they experience life or process life, or maybe it's just how a person is right now. And on the far right is very rational, using logical ways of approaching things. So just pause for a moment. Where would you place yourself on this scale in terms of way over on the left, emotional, way over on the right, rational? And then which part of this scale do you think adults take up more space, spend more of their time? Well, a lot of times adults by necessity, a lot of times are sort of over on the right-hand part of this screen, feeling where they're dealing with life more rational because they're having to be in positions of responsibility where they're required to think things through, to use what we call the prefrontal cortex to think about things, think things through, think of the consequences as parents, as partners, as spouses, as employees, as supervisors. They're the ones called to think more about that. So now I will say, as a matter of course, for part of my journey in life was I automatically, because I was raised in a family of attorneys, half my family that I came from is attorneys. So I somehow ended up with the concept that rational was always better, and that my goal in life would be to move from the emotional and camp out on rational. But over the years, I've come to see we need a mix of all of this. We are whole people. This is how we experience life. The emotions are there, whether we really like it or not. We're going to experience them in our bodies, and it's going to come out on our behavior one way or another. So as we look at this, the other thing then to consider is, where are children? Children are more on the left, and we adults, as I said, spend more time on the right. So, and it may depend, this may be quite variable for any of us. How much sleep did you get last night? How much stress are you under? What else is on your mind? How long has it been since you had a meal today? Those things also impact where we might be on this scale. But again, the important thing for us is to understand that children, by their very nature of being children, are on the emotional side of the scale. Rational is not accessible to them because they do not have fully developed brains. In my work as a preventionist and in helping deal with prevention of substance use disorders, is reminding people that the human brain isn't fully mature until about age 25. So it's just a neurological inconvenience. We may think we want the children to be able to be more rational and follow through thinking, do forward thinking. But really, it's a neurological inconvenience that their brains just aren't going to be fully hooked up until they're about 25. So it's not a wrinkle-free process. So being able to remember that children tend to be on this emotional scale and not only can't access, they don't even have it developed yet. So children need to feel loved to believe they are loved. That's a very important distinction. They need to feel loved to believe they are loved. Words might not have much meaning. Remember, we said they're going to ask by their behavior and we need to answer by their behavior. So just telling a child, I love you, that may be a pleasant, warm and fuzzy thing. However, we have to factor in, we may have to supplement that a lot for children to feel loved, because they need to feel that emotion in their bodies so that they will act better. Well, then how are we going to be able to do that? Children who feel loved usually behave better, learn better, and they usually develop more resilience. So we want to remember that to keep us moving forward. How do we accomplish this feat? All right, back to our FEAT, feet. So we're going to dive into this now, the heart of what the presentation is. Here are the concepts you can use to accomplish this feat, to fill their emotional tanks through, again, E stands for eye contact, A stands for attention, focused attention, and T stands for touch. Actually, Dr. Campbell presented these in a different order, but it didn't spell anything. So this was the way I chose to share with you today because I want you to be able to carry it with you when we're done with this presentation. First of all, in this awesome feat that we're going to help you accomplish is to remember that a child has an emotional tank. Remember, just like we understand as adults, we may get tired, we may get exhausted, we may get hungry, we may need affirmation and encouragement. We understand that concept that our emotional and physical, our spiritual and financial resources may get drained. Well, children, think of children as having a tank. And for us to understand their tanks may get drained. So we may think, well, I just took care of that. And we're going to have to do it again because they're children. So it keeps getting drained. Keeps needing refilling. And we are the adults that are that we're on the hook to do that as parents, as adult caregivers, to be able to offer that for them. So again, we need to know this. We're going to have to consider the factors that are draining the tank and that we can be proactive to fill their tanks as we become more aware and acquire skills and are just watching for opportunities. So again, fill their emotional tanks, F through E, eye contact, A, attention or focused attention, and T, touch. The first one we're going to dive into is eye contact. Eye contact is so vital. This is the primary way that we nurture our children. I will tell you one of the reasons that Dr. Campbell's book was so impactful for me was I was reading it when my firstborn was about 6 weeks old. And he describes in the book that you notice when a baby begins to get control of their eyes at about 6 weeks, they're born where their eyes drift off, and then they begin to get intentional control at about 6 weeks, and they begin roving around. What are they looking for? They're looking for another set of eyes. That made such a huge impact on me because there was that. Excuse me, I'm going to turn off my notifications. I apparently forgot to do that. Thank you for your patience there. So to be able to understand, and a baby that's 3 months old, their favorite toy is another human face. They can't get up and participate in the world, but wow, when their eyes lock onto another human face, and that you're making faces and noise, they're making faces and noises, and you're reciprocating that feels powerful and they feel nurtured. It's such an important connection. So we look at some things to think about. It's the primary way. It's a strong connection from infancy on. And one thing I do want to pause and just mention is there are also cultural considerations. Sometimes we use eye contact as the main discipline. Like if a child has done something wrong and we say, now look at me, we want to discipline that. If that's the primary way we are disciplining children, then again, this makes a wonderful conduit for love, and positive connection could be primarily a negative connection for a child. So we want to be very attuned to that. Also, there are cultural considerations. There are some cultures, sometimes in Black culture and sometimes Latino culture, where looking for a child to look in a prolonged way at an adult could be interpreted as being disrespectful. So knowing those cultural considerations, if you're, say, a teacher or you're working with children in other cultures, is very important. And again, paying attention to be sure that it's not primarily used as a way to discipline a child, but that it's also primarily a way to nurture a child. So as we pause and think about what happens between a parent and a child, an adult and a child, when we make eye contact, it says, I see you, you're important, I am taking you in as another human being, I'm paying attention. As we're always going to go back and remember, children understand. They don't understand, but they intrinsically know that they are dependent on us. And if we don't see them, if we're not on their radar, if they don't can't get our attention, then that's a lot of anxiety about, am I going to be okay if I can't even get the attention, if this all important adult in my life doesn't really see me? So we have to pause and consider what harm we might do from the unintentional absence of eye contact or the real severe harm of intentional withdrawal of eye contact. I think we may have all experienced a time when someone was angry with us, so angry that they would not even look at us. Even as adults, that is a difficult thing to deal with when someone will not even make eye contact. So, again, for a child who has few resources or coping skills, that can be devastating for us to have an unintentional withdrawal. So when the child is asking the question, do you love me? And we answer by our behavior, which if it includes failure to make eye contact, we may not have helped our child feel loved. We may say, yeah, 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 I love you. You know, I love you. Yep, yep, I love you. We don't feel loved, or we're sort of giving that half-hearted attention. So again, we may have a child, how many times you may have been on a playground and the child's going, watch me, look, daddy, look, mommy, look, grandma, look, grandpa, look, teacher, look, somebody, watch me. And their adults are on the phone, scrolling, not paying attention. How often I see in recent years where there'll be at a restaurant, a whole family, everybody's on the phone. Nobody's looking at each other. Or adults are on computers or fixing meals or wrapping gifts. What else could you think of? Probably lots of things that you need to do because you're an adult, right? But there are lots of things that get in the way of our offering our children eye contact. An important part of this consideration of eye contact and accomplishing the feat of helping your child feel loved is that you might be with your child, but you might not be making eye contact. So you might be wrapping gifts. I read of one family where they were moving. They were with their children a lot, but they were getting ready to move. So they had a lot to do. Well, it wasn't quite enough because the parents noted the children are really acting up a lot, even though the parents were present. So parents begin to tune into this and begin to take more time to be sure to make eye contact with their children. So their children's anxiety about, do you even see me? You're so busy moving. So those anxieties could be lowered so that children would feel loved even in the midst of this disruption in the family. So again, children often ask the question, do you love me? And they're going to ask it through their behavior. And remember, we need to answer it through our behavior. So I think here's a few strategies and ideas. And again, maybe you can drop some in the comments and we'll talk about them later, but these are just a few to think about. First of all, I think just beginning to pay attention. How often are you making eye contact with your child or your children or another loved one in your family? It's easy for us to ignore partners or ignore the needs of other people that are important in our lives, even coworkers, if we don't look at them. So being able to make eye contact can be really important. One of the things, this sort of lapses over into the next thing, but one strategy that I had heard that seemed to be very helpful when my children were small was, when they're tugging on you and you're trying to get the meal on the table, get the dishes done, or get this email done so that you're done for the day, to be able to just pause and look right at the child and say, you are next. So that reassurance of, yes, I see you, I see your need. And then again, to establish that reliability, that you keep your word. You're next. Also, to put the phone down, face down, maybe in another room. A couple of times, I confess, it's been very helpful. I had a much better playtime with my granddaughter when I would go up to her room to play with her and leave my phone downstairs because I would just lapse into my habit. But I don't get to see my granddaughter often. So I wanted to take advantage of the fact of having the phone absent. Close the computer. You know what it's like when somebody's sort of half talking. They're talking to you. They're listening. They're saying they're listening, but they're really scrolling. Yes, okay? Or someone's at the computer, but they're not looking at you. So to be able to, if you need to say, let me finish this, just give me a moment, and I will be right with you to be able to let them know that and reassure them. So that works better with adults too. And then hope to keep your word. Look at ways you can also phone-free zones. One for family I heard of just last week decided, we can make it a phone-free zone in the car on the way to school. Nobody's scrolling, nobody's answering, nobody's talking, all phones put away on the way to school. That the adults had the ability to make that decision to be able to do that. Sometimes people find it very helpful to just schedule some time to play a game, especially with a younger child, where the younger child gets to determine the rules of the game. So that it's not like, okay, then no, this is really how you play Go Fish. Just let the child do it and look at them, enjoy it, be with the child. The point isn't to learn how to play the game. The point is to be with the child. And again, having that eye contact where you're enjoying, you're laughing again, and that you're just being present with your child. Eye contact is an extremely important part of that. So we've talked about eye contact. We can talk about it a lot more, but it's enough to give you some ideas I think you can use before the sun goes down today. Secondly, we're going to talk about attention or focused attention. Let's explore what we mean by that. Focused attention would be giving your child or your teen or really anyone that you love your undivided attention. This can help convey unconditional love. And again, this helps quiet the anxiety of, do you even see me? Do you know I'm here? So sometimes we may act out as adults because we have an anxiety that whoever it is that's important in our lives is not really paying attention or aware of us. So being able to give someone focused attention can be helpful. What are some things that get in the way of that? Well, maybe gift. We think other things will do. Well, gifts. Well, I bought you, right? I bought you something. That shows you I love you, right? Special favors. I got you ice cream or candy. I bought you that little toy when we went to the store. I took you with me when we went on a trip or doing something for them. Well, here I did this thing for you. I made sure that your shirt was clean. We may think that that will suffice as focused attention. Other tyrannies, which are some of the same things that overlaps with eye contact. The focus of emails, texts, tweets, all the computers, all those things of work, those things that we need to do because we're adults. We have adult responsibilities, and adult responsibilities don't always follow the timetable of what young people may need or what children may need. So other challenges that get in the way. Some other things we might do is to set priorities. Where do our children fit in? Now, we may say first, but here's the challenge for us as adults, as parents, as caregivers. We may say our children are first, but our children may feel different. We may believe we're putting our children first, but our children may feel different. And again, the critical issue of how are they feeling about their connection to us? Do they feel loved? Not just that they hear or they have a fact that they're loved, but how do they feel loved? And they may feel different. Why? Because our behavior says maybe you're not first. So some strategies and ideas on how we can communicate perhaps more focused attention. Watch for opportunities, maybe fleeting opportunities where there's a little bit of time. Hey, let's go for a walk. Hey, let's do this together. Hey, I'm going to the hardware store. You want to come with? And the one person I knew that he called it the throw the kid in the car. So just invite him to come with you. You're with. So that focused opportunity. Scheduling time together can be very important. Many families do that where they schedule a time. Perhaps it's a little time for a treat or a meal together or going for a walk. They just have some time together one-on-one, and it's on the calendar. And the adult then learns to say, hey, no, I've already got plans. I can't do it. We'll have to change the date on this other thing you want to do. So we begin to protect that time with our children. So sometimes we can't always be as available on the spot as we want, but to be able to schedule the times that we can and be protective of that. Also, sometimes, in a family, you just can't have a lot of one-on-one time, but we can learn in the moment to offer a child full attention. So that maybe it's the families at the dining room table, the child says something, well, something about happened at school. Joy said something kind of sassy to the teacher today. And to look directly at the child, say, well, tell me more about that. What happened? So that that child has your full attention, even in the presence of other people. We can do that instead of, yeah, I'll pass the mashed potatoes. We can turn, incorporate that eye contact that says you're important, and give the child our full attention. And in those moments, we can also, one of the cool things then about focused attention, that is really, we can use all three of these skills in focused attention. We can use our eye contact, and we're going to talk about touch in a minute, but we can use touch also. So focused attention incorporates all of those skills and all of that, those methods that we can use to fill our child's emotional tank. That's why focused attention is very important. And can also help a child feel as though, hey, I'm the most important person. This adult in my life who cares about me, who's supposed to take care of me because I'm dependent, I'm on their radar. They see me, they're available versus I'm not even on, I don't even have a number. I'm not waiting in line. I don't even have a number. So we begin to be able to assure our children by our behavior, by our presence, by our focused attention that they are important to us. So they feel loved, not just know they're loved, but feel loved. So again, you're going to accomplish this feat. You're going to fill their emotional tanks. You're going to use eye contact, attention. We've just talked about that, or focused attention. And then finally, touch. Now, I want you to think about, if you're a parent, how often do you touch your child? Just not necessarily when necessity demands it, helping them get into their snowsuit, in and out of the high chair, wiping them off after a meal, helping them do something. But after they get old enough where they don't need our touch physically to go through the routines of their day, how often do you still touch your child? And not just hugging and kissing. How often do you just touch them on the shoulder, tussle their hair, kind of poke them in the ribs when you think something's funny? How often do you seek that out as the parent? It seems as though many parents think that part of making their children autonomous and able to take care of themselves is that they never touch them. Their child's self-sufficient. You don't need my touch anymore to eat or to use the bathroom. Oh, now you don't need to get dressed. You don't need to put the car seat on. We're pretty much done. I don't have to touch you anymore. Versus remembering that we have this whole thing. The skin is actually an organ, a physical organ of the body. It covers the most square footage as you can imagine. So we have all these wonderful receptor sites available to receive love and affection and connectedness. Now, the flip side of that is then for us to really pause and think about how devastating it can be when these receptor sites, when it's pain that comes. So I want to think about that in relationships. How often do you touch your child, and how is that happening? And for some families, it may be the only time a parent touches a child as they get a little bit older is to physically exert discipline. That's the only time. Again, that's sort of like the only time we might give eye contact is when we discipline a child. So you want to think about ways that we are using and be more intentional about how we're using this really powerful interaction with children. There's tons of information. So I just cited one study because it's been around for decades about from the University of Miami Medical School. They have a touch research institute, if you can believe that. That premature babies, when they got 3 15-minute periods of slow, firm massage, had a 47% greater weight gain. Their physical survival was tremendously increased by physical touch from another human being. So again, we know this, we've done this for a long time. There was one study once at a library where they would ask, they did some sort of survey about the friendliness of the staff and the effectiveness of the staff. And the staff, when they would push the books back to the individual, when possible, the staff would just barely touch the person's hand. And it made a huge difference in terms of how the librarians, how friendly the librarians were perceived. Interesting. So again, being more intentional about this. What are some of the obstacles to offering loving touch? Well, as we said before, we have other responsibilities. We aren't present. Maybe we didn't experience that as children. So it doesn't come to mind that we're thinking about how we can offer loving touch to children. So we might need to think about that and pause. And again, as we sort of take stock of what's going on in our relationships with children, what are some obstacles to loving touch? Well, first of all, again, keep in mind how we may treat boys and girls differently. A lot of times with boys about the age of 10 or 11, we begin to back off from offering physical affection. Maybe we think it's too feminine. I noticed at one point being at family reunions that boys and girls that might be around age 9, 10, or 11 would come sort of scoot up to their mothers and sit on their mother's lap. And then they would run off and play again. And then they would come back and run off and play again. And they were too big. They wouldn't really fit on the lap, but they still wanted that check-in, that reassurance, and to be able to welcome that touch with that child that was very meaningful for the child and for the mothers as well, or the fathers, where they just wanted to sort of check in. But sometimes we back off from that and we think, we sort of, especially I would say boys, um, often, not always, but often may be more rambunctious, but sometimes girls are pretty rambunctious and we kind of shy away from being about that loud, active behavior. So we still have to look for ways that we can offer appropriate touch and loving touch to convey our love to children, even if they're rambunctious or as they get older. Another thing to keep in mind is that dads often quit physical affection for daughters as daughters get over because the daughters may be uncomfortable or the fathers feel uncomfortable. So to still find ways that you can express that because dads, your daughters still need appropriate physical attention from you. They still need your touch. If they don't get it from you, they're more likely to be going looking for it elsewhere. So, and then also teenagers, and we're going to talk about more appropriate ways that you might be able to accomplish it. Teenagers, often begin to develop an aversion to hugs, and they might that we may have had when they were younger. So we're tugging. So if we were depending on hugs and kisses, and suddenly they go, ew, yeah, mom, cut it out, dad, stop it. Then how do we express physical affection? Don't assume that they no longer need touch from us because they do still need touch from us. So let's look at some ideas. First of all, pay attention to touch. How often do you touch your children for just affection, not because they need you to touch, not just hugs and kisses, but just that informal, still being sort of physically connected? How often do they touch you? That's a big sign of connectedness, is how often do they feel comfortable touching you? And then really paying attention to, again, those fleeting moments when you're setting a plate down on the table, touch on the shoulder, picking up a plate, or completing a chore together, tussling hair, kind of poke them in the ribs, maybe even a touch of the hand. That passing connectedness, take advantage of those. Pay attention to that. And then teens are a little trickier, but watch for those moments you can sneak in and have casual and appropriate physical contact with them. A lot of teens sometimes are more open to sort of a side hug. So you kind of go, hey, and just a quick side hug. Will often, instead of the full on frontal hug that we used to give them when they're little, but sort of quick side hugs. Sometimes teens are more open to that. Sometimes a little poke in the rib, or put a hand on the shoulder and say, look at that over there, when you're sharing something that's funny together, a funny movie or something that you see when you're out together. Watch for that. A pat on the back while they're doing a chore or saying hello or goodbye. They might not, again, I love you, but they might not tolerate a full hug or a kiss, but just, hey, just a touch on the shoulder or on the back sometimes can help. I know of one dad that the teen was sitting on the couch, and he would make it a practice when he would walk by the couch to just put a hand on the shoulder, teen's shoulders, sort of some contact, and then keep walking. And then one time he thought, I wonder how many times I can do that. So he walked back through and touched the teenager again on the shoulder, just a light, affectionate touch. It was like 6 or 7 times where the teenager finally went, what are you doing? But to keep in mind, just as you walk past, that light touch is a connection that says, I see you, I care about you, you are important to me, I want to be connected to you. They not really enough time for them to shrug it off. And I would say if there's a child that shrugs that off, just a real light one, then maybe looking at some other ways to cultivate, because it says, I'm feeling kind of hurt or angry, probably. if they're shrugging off even just a very light, casual touch from a parent. So again, to fill their tanks, be attentive, notice when their behavior might be asking that question. Do you remember what's the question? Do you love me? Be proactive. This is a really important concept. Anticipate when you will be less available. Fill the tank before. Maybe before you know you're going to be gone for an evening with small children, spend time with them before you go. Maybe when you have this big family gathering coming up and you want to be visit with other people, spend time with your child before that. So again, to be proactive, because we're the adults, we're going to have to do the forward thinking on that. So those are concepts that you can use to accomplish this great feat to fill their emotional tanks to help your children feel loved, fill their emotional tanks through eye contact, attention or focused attention, and touch. Remember, what's the one question? Do you love me? Be ready to answer it with your behavior. You can accomplish this feat. All right. So again, fill their emotional tanks, eye contact, attention or focused attention, and touch. And I believe, again, when can you begin? I think you can do this before the sun sets today to pay attention and begin to incorporate a little more eye contact, a little more attention, and a little more touch with your children. So, any comments or questions? Sarah, have you got anything there in the chat?
I do not have anything in the
All
chat.
right.
I
All right.
will invite anybody to put
Any
something in the
comments or
chat right
questions?
now. And I'm always thrilled to get to host these because everything you learn is really appropriate to any age, which is just a nice reminder
I
to
think so.
for me as an older person, so to
Right.
speak,
Right.
without any little children in the home, or teens in the home. So it's just a great reminder to even except for some of the things, just even with coworkers and things like that.
Right.
So I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
You got a Heather, you're a rock star in the comments. So
Okay. Thanks.
we agree with that. Thank you so much. And thank you all for coming. Once again, it has been recorded, so it'll be up in a few days if you know people that had wanted to come, or if you want to revisit it or share it out, feel free to check next week. And I'm sure that Children's Grove and the library and Heather will all be sharing it out
Yeah.
again
Well,
once we get the recording link. So thank
right.
you all for coming on a Monday.
Sure. And if
Uh,
anybody has any questions, there's my contact information. Please
Excellent.
feel free to contact me. Again, the name of the book was How to Really Love Your Child by Campbell, or How to Really Love Your Teen, also by Campbell, if people were interested in knowing a little bit more about that.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Children's Grove. Bye.